The lower market levels of Gateway 7 always smelled like a mix of things Rick Barnes couldn't identify. Some sweet, some sour, all alien. He kept his hands in his jacket pockets as he walked through the crowd, tired from another long day fixing broken equipment for species that barely looked at him twice. Being human on a station full of hundreds of alien races meant being invisible most days. That suited Rick just fine that he worked as a mechanic in a cramped shop that doubled as his home. The pay was enough to eat and keep the lights on, nothing more. Most days he fixed data pads, shipped components, sometimes whole navigation systems when he got lucky. The work was honest and he liked it that way. Tonight, he just wanted to get back to his quarters and sleep. His route home cut through the exotic creature market, a place he usually avoided. The cages and tanks always made him uncomfortable. But tonight, the main corridor was closed for repairs. So here he was. The market was closing down. Vendors packed up their displays while unsold creatures made quiet sounds in their containers. Rick walked faster, not wanting to see any of it. That's when he heard something that stopped him cold, a soft sound. Barely a whisper, sad in a way that hit him right in the chest. Rick turned and saw a vendor loading containers onto a hovering cart. One of the containers was small, maybe the size of a shoebox. The sad sound came from inside it. "What's that?" Rick asked before he could stop himself. The vendor was a tall alien with 4 arms and gray skin. He glanced at the container like it was garbage. Starwing hatchling. Defective. Taking it to disposal. Disposal? Rick felt something cold settle in his stomach. It didn't sell. Wings twisted. Too small. Nobody wants damaged goods. The vendor shrugged, all 4 shoulders. Happens sometimes. The healthy one sold fine. Rick moved closer to the container. Through the clear side panel, he saw a tiny dragon. Her scales were pale silver blue, pretty even in the dim market lights. She looked up at him with dark eyes that seemed way too intelligent. Way too sad. "You're just going to kill it." Rick's voice came out harder than he meant. Humanely, the vendor said, like that made it better. "It's standard practice. Can't keep unsold stock." The hatchling made that sound again. It went straight through Rick's heart. "How much?" he asked. The vendor laughed. "You want it? Take it. Free. Saves me the disposal fee." He grabbed the container and shoved it at Rick. "One less problem for me." Rick took the container before he could think about what he was doing. The hatchling inside shifted, looking up at him. Other aliens walked past without a glance. Just another transaction in a busy market. Nobody cared about one defective hatchling. Nobody except Rick. He carried the container back to his shop carefully, like it held something precious. Maybe it did. Inside his small quarters behind the shop, he set the container on his workbench and opened it. The hatchling didn't move at first. She was tiny, smaller than his forearm. Her left wing did look twisted, bent at an odd angle against her body. Her breathing seemed shallow. "Hey there," Rick said softly. "You're okay now. I got you." He had no idea what he was doing. Rick pulled up the station's database on his datapad and searched frantically for information on starwings. The more he read, the more worried he got. Hatchlings needed specific foods, certain temperatures, and something called bonding in their first weeks of life. Without it, they could die from loneliness. This little one had been sitting in that market, rejected and alone for who knew how long. Rick found a supplier still open and bought specialized nutrient paste that cost more than his dinner budget for a week. He didn't care. He set up a nest using every soft thing he owned, heated blankets underneath to keep her warm. The database said starwings liked enclosed spaces when scared, so he built walls around the nest with spare parts boxes. The hatchling watched everything he did with those dark, intelligent eyes. "Come on," Rick said gently, offering a fingerful of the nutrient paste. "You need to eat." She didn't move. Rick tried again, moving slowly. "Please, I know you're scared. I know people hurt you by not wanting you. But I want you, okay? You're not alone anymore." Maybe she understood his tone. Maybe she was just hungry enough. The hatchling stretched her neck and licked the paste off his finger. Then she made a different sound, not sad this time. Almost curious. Rick kept feeding her tiny amounts, patient and careful. She ate more than he expected. When she finally stopped, he set her in the nest he'd made. She curled up immediately, her twisted wing tucked as best she could manage. I'll figure out how to help you, Rick promised. That wing, everything. We'll work it out. He pulled up more information, reading everything he could find about Starwing care and health. Hours passed. His eyes burned with tiredness, but he kept reading. The hatchling slept in her nest, her small body rising and falling with each breath. Around midnight, Rick's head started dropping. He gave up and laid down on his bunk, still in his work clothes. A few minutes later, he felt something warm against his chest. The hatchling had climbed out of her nest and up onto his bunk. She curled against him, seeking his warmth. Rick carefully put his hand over her, protective and gentle. She made a soft chirping sound, peaceful now. Her scales felt smooth under his palm, and he could have sworn they glowed a little bit warmer. Nobody wants you, huh? Rick whispered into the dark. Well, they're idiots. You're perfect. The hatchling shifted closer, like she understood. Maybe she did. Rick closed his eyes, feeling the small life tucked against him, trusting him completely. He'd figure out the details tomorrow. Tonight, this was enough. 2 weeks changed everything. Rick named her Silver because of her pale scales that caught the light just right. She grew fast, already the size of a house cat, and followed him everywhere around the shop. When he worked on repairs, she perched on the corner of his workbench, watching with those intelligent eyes. When he ate, she sat nearby, waiting for her own portions of nutrient paste mixed with the small chunks of meat the database recommended. Her twisted wing looked better. Rick had found exercises in the Starwing care guides, gentle stretches he did with her twice a day. Silver didn't like them much, making grumbly sounds, but she let him do it. Trust, Rick figured. She trusted him. The shop had more visitors than usual. Word got around about the human with the Starwing hatchling. Most aliens who came in seemed surprised he'd kept her. A wealthy Torvin merchant with purple skin and too many rings on his 6 fingers came in one afternoon. He looked at Silver perched on her favorite spot and smiled in a way Rick didn't like. I'll give you 5,000 credits for the hatchling, the Torvin said, like he was doing Rick a favor. She's not for sale, Rick replied without looking up from the navigation unit he was fixing. 10,000. That's more than you make in 6 months, human. Not interested. Rick set down his tools and looked at the merchant directly. She's family, not property. So unless you need something repaired, you can leave. The Torvin left, muttering about foolish humans. Silver made a happy chirping sound, and Rick scratched behind her head ridge where she liked it. That evening, Officer Dren showed up. He was tall, even for his insectoid species, with hard shell-like skin and too many joints in his arms. He worked station security and had a reputation for following every rule exactly. Rick Barnes, Dren said, his voice clicking and buzzing through his translator. I'm here about your Starwing. Rick's stomach tightened. What about her? Starwings are a regulated species. You need proper registration and proof you can provide adequate care. Dren's multiple eyes looked around Rick's cramped quarters. This space doesn't meet minimum requirements. You have 2 weeks to comply, or the hatchling will be removed to appropriate facilities. Silver, sensing Rick's stress, moved to stand between him and Dren. She was small, but her wings spread slightly, protective. I'll get the registration, Rick said, keeping his voice steady. See that you do. Dren left without another word. Rick looked up the requirements that night and felt his hopes sink. He needed 500 square feet of living space. Financial records proving long-term stability. Environmental controls he couldn't afford. His shop and quarters together barely met half the space requirement, and his bank account was a joke. He might lose Silver because of paperwork and money. Silver curled up next to him as he sat at his workbench, staring at the requirements list. She put her head on his leg, humming that soft sound that meant she was content. Rick ran his hand along her scales, feeling the warmth of her. I'm not giving up, he told her. We'll figure something out. The next morning, Dr. Lero walked into his shop. She was avian with feathers that shifted between blue and green and worked as a xenobiologist on the station. Rick had never met her before. I heard about your situation, she said, settling onto one of Rick's stools with natural grace. I study bonded species. May I examine your Starwing? Rick hesitated, but something in her tone seemed genuine. Okay, but be gentle. She's been through enough. Dr. Lyra approached Silver slowly, making soft clicking sounds. Silver watched her but didn't hide. The examination took 20 minutes. Dr. Lyra checked Silver's scales, wings, eyes, even her teeth. Fascinating, Dr. Lyra said finally. She's healthier than most bonded star wings I've studied. The bond between you is developing naturally and strong. Is that unusual? Rick asked. Very. Most species bond with star wings for status or their abilities. The hatchlings sense this. It affects their development. Dr. Lyra looked at Rick with her large eyes. But she genuinely loves you. And you love her. That's rare in cross-species bonds. I just didn't want her to die alone in some market, Rick said. Exactly. That empathy is what makes the difference. Dr. Lyra pulled out her data pad. I can help you with the documentation. My professional assessment would carry weight, but you'll still need to improve your living space. Rick started taking every extra repair job he could find. He worked late into the nights, with Silver sleeping in her nest nearby. The money came in slowly, but it came. He began converting part of his shop, building up instead of out, creating a second level that would meet the space requirements. Silver helped in her own way. She learned to bring him tools, carefully carrying screwdrivers or wire cutters in her mouth. Her spatial awareness was incredible. She could find drop screws in seconds, spotting them in corners Rick would have missed. Other people on the station started noticing their partnership. A Vraxian engineer offered Rick a bulk job repairing mining equipment at good pay. A human trader named Gavin stopped by with coffee one morning just to talk. People are watching you, Gavin said, sitting across from Rick while Silver investigated his boots. The human with the dragon. It's a good story. I'm just trying to keep her, Rick said. Yeah, but you're showing something important. Gavin scratched Silver's head ridge, making her purr. That humans can bond with other species in ways that matter. That we're not just the new guys stumbling around the galaxy. Rick hadn't thought about it that way. He was just doing what felt right out a week before Officer Dren's deadline. The construction was almost done. The new upper level had proper environmental controls, ventilation, and more than enough space. Rick had spent almost everything he had, but it would work. Silver had grown again. She could glide now, short flights from the upper level down to the shop floor. Her twisted wing was almost normal, the exercises and growth combining to fix what everyone had called defective. Dren came back exactly on schedule. He inspected everything with his clicking, methodical way. Silver stayed close to Rick, not hiding, but clearly wary. This meets minimum requirements, Dren said finally. But there's still the matter of financial stability and long-term capability. I have Dr. Lear's assessment, Rick offered, handing over the data pad. Dren barely looked at it. I'll need to review everything. Decision in 3 days. After he left, Rick felt Silver press against his leg. He picked her up, surprised at how heavy she'd gotten, and held her close. 3 more days, he whispered. We can do 3 more days. Silver chirped and bumped her head against his chin. In the bond growing between them, Rick felt her certainty. She wasn't worried. She knew where she belonged. Gavin came back to the shop late one evening, after most of the station had gone quiet. Rick was cleaning up, putting away tools while Silver practiced her gliding from the upper level. She was getting good at it, landing with more grace each time. We need to talk, Gavin said, and his voice carried something heavy. Somewhere private. Rick led him upstairs to the living quarters. Silver followed, sensing the tension. Once the door closed, Gavin pulled out his data pad and set it on the small table. I'm a data analyst for Meridian Trading, Gavin started. Part of my job is tracking commodity flows through the station, including exotic creatures. He pulled up files, charts, numbers that meant nothing to Rick. I've been watching Starwing sales for months. Something's wrong. Wrong how? Rick asked. Hatchlings marked as defective get sold cheap or given away. Then weeks later, those same hatchlings show up in military contract sales. Fully bonded, healthy, going for 50 times their original price. Gavin scrolled through the data. It's a pattern. Someone's running a scam. Rick felt cold. Who? I don't have proof yet, but I think Officer Dren is part of it. He's the one who determines if owners meet requirements. He's the one who removes hatchlings from unqualified owners. Gavin looked at Rick directly. Then those hatchlings disappear into the system and resurface in military sales. They separate bonded pairs. Rick's hand found Silver's head, stroking her scales. She pressed against him, picking up his fear. After the bond forms, yeah? Makes the star wing more valuable. Bonded ones have enhanced abilities. Navigation, spatial awareness, combat coordination. Gavin's face was grim. The original bond partners either get paid off or they just vanish from records. Nobody asks questions. Dren's coming back with his decision in 2 days, Rick said quietly. I know. That's why I'm here. Gavin closed his data pad. If he rules against you, they'll take Silver. You'll probably get offered money to make it clean. If you refuse, you might have an accident. Silver made a low sound, almost a growl. She understood enough to know they were talking about someone taking her away from Rick. What can I do? Rick asked. Run, fight, or expose them. Gavin stood up. Running makes you a fugitive. Fighting alone gets you killed. But if we can expose the whole operation, get in front of people who aren't corrupt, maybe we save Silver and stop them from doing this to others. The next morning, Dr. Lyra arrived early. Rick told her everything Gavin had shared. She listened, her feathers ruffling in agitation. This makes sense, she said. I've wondered why so many healthy star wings end up in medical isolation or welfare facilities. They're not sick, they're being staged for resale. Can you help? Rick asked. I can document Silver's health and your bond. Provide expert testimony if needed. But we'll need more than my word. Dr. Lyra examined Silver again, taking detailed scans and readings. She's remarkable, you know. Her genetic markers suggest she's from a rare bloodline. Not defective at all. That wing twist was positional from how she was in the egg. It's corrected now. So someone lied about her being damaged. Rick felt anger burn in his chest, probably to lower her value initially. Make her easier to acquire cheap, then sell high later after bonding. Dr. Lyra's eyes were sad. It's cruel and efficient. Gavin spent the day pulling more data, building a case. Rick worked in his shop, trying to act normal while his mind raced. Silver stayed close, never more than a few feet away. She'd grown to the size of a large dog now, and her presence was comforting. That evening, Officer Dren came early. I've made my decision, Dren announced, his voice carrying that clicking authority. Your facilities are adequate, but financial records show instability. I'm removing the Star Wing to protective custody tomorrow morning. No, Rick said simply. It's not a request. A facility has already agreed to take her. Director Halloran runs a sanctuary for displaced, bonded creatures. He'll care for her properly. Dren's multiple eyes fixed on Rick. You'll be compensated for your time and resources. Silver moved between them, wings spread, making a sound Rick had never heard before. Protective, aggressive. She was small compared to Dren, but she didn't back down. Call him off, Dren ordered. Her. And no, Rick stood his ground. I'm appealing your decision to the station administrator. That's your right. The appeal hearing will be in 3 days. Until then, I could take her now for safety reasons. Try it, Rick said quietly, and see what happens. Dren looked at Silver, at Rick, calculating. Finally, he stepped back. 3 days. Don't do anything foolish, human. After Dren left, Rick's hand shook. He sat down hard on his work stool, and Silver immediately climbed into his lap. Too big for it, but trying anyway. He wrapped his arms around her. I'm scared, he admitted to her. I don't know if we can win this. Silver made her humming sound, the one that meant she was happy. She put her head against his chest, right over his heart. In the bond between them, Rick felt her certainty, her absolute faith that he would protect her. That night, Gavin and Dr. Lyra came back. They had a plan. The station administrator is Sola, Dr. Lyra explained. She's old, experienced, and generally fair. If we could present evidence of the trafficking operation along with proof of your genuine bond with Silver, she might rule in your favor. Might? Rick asked. It's the best chance we have, Gavin said. I've compiled all the data on suspicious Starwing sales. Dr. Lyra has scientific evidence of your bond's health. You just need to show Sola why you and Silver belong together, and if Halloran is part of the scam. Rick asked. Then we expose him too, Gavin said. But we have to be smart. These people have money and connections. We have the truth and hope that's enough. Rick looked at Silver, sleeping now in her nest. She'd been rejected, abandoned, nearly killed. And she'd chosen to trust him, to bond with him, to love him despite everything. Okay, Rick said, let's fight. 3 days until the hearing. 3 days to save the best thing that ever happened to him. Rick didn't sleep much that night, planning and worrying. But every time doubt crept in, he felt Silver's warmth through their bond. She believed in him. That had to be enough. The administrative chamber was bigger than Rick expected. Administrator Sola sat at a raised desk, her reptilian features showing age and wisdom. Her scales were a deep green that had faded with time, and her eyes missed nothing. Station security lined the walls, making everything feel official and serious. Rick sat at a small table with Gavin and Dr. Lyra on either side. Silver stayed close to Rick's chair, calm but alert. Across the room, Officer Dren sat with a well-dressed alien Rick didn't recognize. The alien's expensive clothes and confident posture marked him as someone important. This hearing will determine the proper placement of the Star Wing hatchling currently in the care of Rick Barnes, Sola announced, her voice carrying authority. Officer Dren, present your case. Dren stood, his insectoid body clicking as he moved. The human does not meet the requirements for proper Star Wing care. While his facilities now meet minimum space standards, his financial instability poses risk to long-term care. I recommend removal to a certified facility. And you have such a facility identified? Sola asked. The well-dressed alien stood smoothly. Director Halran, Administrator. I operate several sanctuaries for displaced, bonded creatures across 3 stations. I would gladly accept responsibility for this hatchling at no cost to anyone. How generous, Sola said, her tone neutral. Mr. Barnes, your response? Rick stood, his legs feeling shaky. Public speaking had never been his thing. Silver isn't displaced. She's bonded to me. We chose each other. The creature was unwanted and defective when you acquired it, Halloran said with a dismissive gesture. Hardly a choice. She was rejected and scared. Rick corrected, feeling anger give him strength. Nobody wanted her because her wing was twisted, but that didn't make her defective. It made her unlucky until someone looked past the surface. Doctor Lirastud. If I may, Administrator, I've conducted extensive examinations of both the Star Wing and her bond with Mr. Barnes. May I present my findings? Sola nodded, punto dottore. Lyra pulled up holographic displays showing Silver's health scans, genetic markers, and development charts. This hatchling is not defective. She's from a rare genetic line with enhanced spatial awareness. The wing abnormality was positional, not genetic, and has corrected naturally. Her development under Mr. Barnes's care exceeds normal parameters. The bond between them is genuine and healthy. Of course, a human would form an emotional attachment, Halloran said smoothly. They're known for that. But emotion doesn't equal proper care. Actually, it does, Dr. Lyra replied. Star Wings bonded through genuine affection develop better than those bonded for utility or status. The emotional connection is the foundation of healthy Star Wing development. Gavin stood next. Administrator, I have evidence of a broader pattern. May I present? Sola gestured permission. Gavin displayed his data, charts showing Star Wing sales over the past 2 years. Notice the pattern. Hatchlings mark defective sell for minimal amounts or are given away. Within weeks, those same hatchlings appear in military contract sales at 50 times their initial price. All fully bonded, all claimed to be from Director Halloran's sanctuaries. That's standard rehabilitation, Halloran said, but his confidence seemed less solid. We provide proper care, the hatchlings recover, and we find appropriate placements. Then why don't the original bond partners ever see them again? Gavin asked. I have records of 17 individuals who surrendered their Star Wings to your facilities. None have had contact since, despite promises of visitation rights. Sola's eyes narrowed. Director Halloran, can you explain this? Privacy protocols protect our clients, Howren said quickly. Both the creatures and their new bond partners. Convenient, Sola said. She turned to Rick. Mr. Barnes, why should I allow you to keep this hatchling when you barely meet the requirements? Rick looked at Silver. She looked back at him with those intelligent eyes. He felt the bond between them, warm and real and unbreakable. Because I don't see her as property or status or a tool, Rick said quietly. I see her as family. When everyone else saw something broken and worthless, I saw someone who needed help. And she saw someone who would give it. He paused. Regulations exist to protect creatures like Silver. But they were written for species that bond for the wrong reasons. Humans bond because we care, sometimes irrationally. Maybe that's what creatures like Silver need. Silver stood and walked to the center of the chamber. Everyone watched as she moved to a scattered pile of data tablets on a side table. Carefully, using her claws and snout, she organized them by size, then by color, then pushed them into neat stacks. Did you train her do that? Sola asked. No, Rick said, surprised. She just likes organizing things. Does it in my shop all the time. Silver returned to Rick and sat at his feet, facing Howren. Her posture was clear, protective, choosing her side. Sola was quiet for a long moment. I'm calling a recess. I need to review this evidence and conduct some inquiries of my own. 2 hours felt like days. Rick sat in a waiting area with Silver's head in his lap. Gavin paced. Dr. Lyra reviewed her data again and again. When they were called back, Sola's expression was serious. I've reviewed the evidence and contacted individuals who used Director Halloran's services, Sola announced. The pattern Mr. Gavin presented is concerning. I'm ordering a full investigation into all of Director Halloran's facilities and transactions. Halloran stood quickly. This is outrageous. Based on coincidence and a human's emotional attachment. Based on 17 missing Star Wings and suspicious financial records, Sola corrected coldly. Officer Dren, you're suspended pending investigation into your role in this matter. Security, please escort both of them out. The chamber erupted in activity. Rick felt hope and fear mixing in his chest. Sola looked at him directly. Mr. Barnes, you present an interesting case. Your bond appears genuine. Your care has been exceptional. However, I'm still bound by regulations that exist for good reasons. Rick's hopes sank. Therefore, I'm establishing a trial period. You'll keep the Star Wing under monitored conditions for 6 months. Dr. Lyra will conduct regular assessments. You'll complete official Star Wing care certification. If the bond remains healthy and the hatchling thrives, I'll grant permanent recognition. Thank you, Rick managed, his voice rough with emotion. Don't thank me yet. This case will help establish new protocols for human Star Wing bonding. You're setting a precedent. Don't waste it. Rick looked down at Silver, who looked back with absolute trust. I won't. As they left the chamber, Rick felt lighter than he had in days. 6 months. He could do 6 months. They could do anything together. News spread fast on Gateway 7. Within days, everyone knew about the human mechanic and his dragon, about the trafficking ring that got exposed, about the hearing that changed everything. Rick's shop suddenly had more customers than he could handle, all wanting to meet the famous pair. Silver handled the attention better than Rick did. She'd grown to the size of a small pony now, her silver-blue scales shimmering under the shop lights. Her wings were fully functional, strong, and beautiful. Nobody would call her defective now. Rick started his certification courses while working in the shop. The online classes covered Star Wing biology, psychology, nutrition, and care requirements. Most of it he'd learned by doing, but having the official knowledge helped. Silver would knock over his data pad sometimes, wanting attention, and Rick would take breaks to play with her. Dr. Lyra came bi-weekly for assessments. Every time, she documented Silver's exceptional health and development. The bond between Rick and Silver had deepened in ways the doctor found fascinating. You can sense her emotions across the station now, can't you? Dr. Lyra asked during one visit. Rick nodded. If she's scared or hungry or happy, I just know. Even if I'm working and she's upstairs. That's remarkable bonding depth for such a short time. Dr. Lyra made notes on her data pad. Most bonds take years to develop that level of connection. Is that bad? Rick asked, worried. No, it's beautiful. Dr. Lyra similet. It proves what I suspected. Humans bond through genuine emotion, not utility. That creates stronger, healthier relationships. A message came from Earth one evening. Rick's younger sister Rachel had seen news coverage about the hearing. Her face on the video screen showed worry mixed with pride. You always did pick up strays, Rachel said, smiling. But a dragon? Really? She needed me, Rick replied. Silver pushed her head into the video frame, curious about the other human voice. Rachel laughed. She's gorgeous. And huge. Are you sure you know what you're doing? Absolutely not, Rick admitted. But we're figuring it out together. They talked for an hour, catching up on family news and Earth gossip. Rachel worked as a teacher in Seattle, had a good life, Mr. Brother. Rick realized how much he'd missed her too. The shop expanded. Rick earned enough from the increased business to properly convert the upper level into a real home. He installed a launch platform for Silver outside, where she could take off and land safely. The space met all requirements now, and then some. Other people started coming to Rick with questions about bonded creatures. A Vraxian with a sick companion animal asked for advice. A human trader with a newly bonded pet didn't know what to do. Rick helped when he could, surprised to find himself becoming an unofficial resource. Silver's intelligence continued to develop. Rick taught her to read basic symbols and words, using colored blocks and simple signs. She learned fast, understanding concepts that shouldn't be possible for a creature her age. She could fetch specific tools by name, organize parts by type, even operate simple switches with her claws. One day, a customer asked Silver to find a specific size of bolt. She went to Rick's organized storage, thought for a moment, then brought back the exact right one. The customer stared in amazement. She understood the measurement? The customer asked. Yeah, Rick said proudly. She's smart. The 6-month mark approached. Rick completed his certification with high scores. Dr. Lyra's reports showed Silver exceeded every benchmark for health and development. Everything pointed toward success. Then a ship docked at Gateway 7 that changed everything. Rick was closing up the shop when Dr. Lyra arrived, excited and nervous. Someone important is here to see you and Silver. From the Starwing homeworld. Rick's stomach dropped. What do they want? I don't know. But Elder Surith is a senior council member. She doesn't travel lightly. Elder Surith was ancient and magnificent. Her scales were deep purple with gold edges. Her wings massive, even folded against her body. She stood twice Silver's height, radiating power and wisdom. When she spoke, her voice resonated like music. I have traveled far to see the human-bonded hatchling, Surith said, looking at Silver with eyes that held centuries. May I observe you both? Rick agreed nervously. What else could he do? Surith spent a full day watching them. She saw Rick working in his shop with Silver helping. Saw them eating together, Rick explaining his repairs while Silver listened intently. Saw the quiet moments when they just existed together, comfortable and complete. That evening, Surith requested a private meeting in Rick's living quarters. Administrator Sola and Dr. Lyra attended as witnesses. I have concerns about my species' treatment in galactic trade, Surith began. Too many hatchlings taken, too many bonds broken for profit. The council considers stopping all exports. Rick's heart sank. Will they take Silver back to the homeworld? But you, Surith continued, looking at Rick with those ancient eyes, you show something different. You bonded not for status or ability, but for compassion. The hatchling chose you as much as you chose her. She's my family, Rick said simply. Surith turned to Silver. Child, you could return to our homeworld. Live among your own kind with honor and comfort. Would you choose this? The room went silent. Silver looked at Surith, then at Rick. She walked to Rick's side and sat, pressing against his leg. Her choice was clear, even if separation would be easier than staying. Surith asked gently. Silver made a low, definite sound. No. She wasn't leaving Rick. That Surith's expression softened. I see the bond's strength. It mirrors the ancient ways, before our kind became commodities. She looked at Rick. I have a proposal. You and Silver could become ambassadors for proper bonding practices. Travel to other stations, help stop trafficking, ensure future bonds honor both species. The Council would support this officially. What does that mean? Rick asked. It means a paid position, authority to investigate suspicious bonding situations, and protection from those who would exploit creatures like Silver. Surith smiled, an expression that looked strange on a dragon's face but somehow warm. It means you continue doing what you already do, but with resources to help others. Rick looked at Silver. She looked back, and through their bond he felt her certainty. They could do this. Together. Okay, Rick said. We'll do it. The final evaluation was a formality after Surith's endorsement. Administrator Sola officially recognized the bond, granted Rick permanent custody, and approved the new ambassador position 0.6 months after finding a rejected hatchling in a market. Rick had a family, a purpose, and a future he'd never imagined. Silver had everything she'd been denied: a home, love, and someone who saw her value when no one else would. Rachel arrived on Gateway 7 3 weeks after the evaluation, carrying 2 bags and a determined expression. Rick met her at the docking bay with Silver at his side. His sister took one look at the fully grown dragon and went pale. That's her? She's massive, Rachel said. Silver, sensing Rick's affection for his sister, approached gently. She lowered her head and made a soft, friendly sound. Rachel laughed nervously and reached out to touch Silver's scales. She's beautiful, Rachel admitted. And you really talk to a dragon for a living now? Something like that, Rick said, grinning. Rachel decided to stay on Gateway 7, helping manage the shop while Rick traveled for ambassador work. She learned to work around Silver, who still insisted on organizing tools and helping with repairs. Within days, they were family. The first mission came quickly. Reports of suspicious Starwing sales on a station called Outpost Meridian, 3 days' travel away. Rick and Silver went together, officially backed by both the Starwing Homeworld Council and Gateway 7's administration. The dealer on Meridian was smooth, professional, showing Rick and Silver 5 hatchlings available for purchase, all marked as defective in some way. One had slightly dull scales. Another was too quiet. The reasons were minor, almost made up. Silver moved among the hatchlings, gentle and careful. She made soft sounds to them, and they responded. Rick watched the dealer, noting his nervous energy, the way he rushed the viewing. Where do the ones that don't sell go? Rick asked casually. Back to the breeder, the dealer said quickly. Too quickly. Which breeder specifically? Rick pressed. The dealer's confidence cracked. Within hours, local authorities had him in custody. The hatchlings went to proper facilities where they could bond naturally. Another piece of the trafficking network was broken. It felt good. Really good. Over the next months, Rick and Silver visited 6 different stations. They found scared hatchlings in bad situations, exposed dealers working with the remnants of Halrin's network, and helped establish new bonding protocols. Each success felt like saving Silver all over again. Silver was incredible at the work. She could sense when bonds were genuine or exploitative, could tell when a hatchling was truly defective or just different. Her spatial awareness helped track shipments and find hidden holding areas, and her presence commanded respect. She was proof that different didn't mean defective. Dr. Lyra published her research on human Starwing bonding. The paper spread through scientific communities, sparking interest in how humans bonded with other species. More humans started working with Starwings, and the results matched Rick and Silver's success. Genuine care created genuine bonds. Gavin got promoted for exposing the trafficking ring. He still stopped by Rick's shop when they were both on Gateway 7, bringing coffee and trading stories. He'd started dating a Torvan engineer, someone he met during the investigation. Life had a way of surprising everyone. 1 year after the hearing, Rick and Silver returned to Gateway 7 after a particularly difficult mission. They'd rescued 4 hatchlings from a smuggling operation, but the fight had been dangerous. Silver had a small burn on her wing from a stun weapon. Rick had bruises. Rachel fussed over both of them, applying medical gel to Silver's wing and making Rick sit down while she heated food. The shop felt like home in a way Rick's old cramped quarters never had. That evening, Rick and Silver went to the launch platform outside their quarters. Silver spread her wings, now enormous and powerful, catching the artificial light from the station systems. Rick leaned against her side, feeling the warmth of her scales. "You remember that market?" Rick asked quietly. "When I found you." Silver made a soft sound. Of course she remembered. "Everyone said you were defective. Worthless. Nobody wanted you." Rick ran his hand along her neck. "But they were wrong. You were never defective. You were just waiting for someone to see the real you." Silver turned her head, fixing one large eye on Rick. In the bond between them, he felt her response. She hadn't been waiting for just anyone. She'd been waiting for him. That a message came through on Rick's comm, another report, another station, more hatchlings that needed help. Rick looked at it, then at Silver. "You up for another trip?" he asked. Silver's response was immediate. She stood, stretched her wings, and looked toward the stars visible through the station's viewports. "Always ready. Always with him." Rick smiled. His life had changed completely from that night in the market. He wasn't just a mechanic anymore, living day to day in a cramped shop. He had family, purpose, and a partner who would stand with him against anything. And Silver had everything she'd been denied. Not just survival, but a life full of meaning and love. "Nobody wants me," Silver had seemed to whisper that night in the market, small and scared and alone. But she'd been wrong. Rick had wanted her, and that had been enough to change everything. They would leave for the next mission in the morning. More hatchlings needed saving, more bonds needed protecting. Rick and Silver would be there, showing the galaxy that compassion mattered more than profit, that family was chosen not assigned, and that sometimes the most effective-looking things held the most value. Silver launched from the platform, gliding in a circle around the station's exterior before landing gracefully back beside Rick. She was showing off, playing, being herself, free and happy and home. Rick laughed and scratched behind her head ridge. "Yeah, I know. You're perfect. Always were." Silver rumbled her agreement. In a bond they shared, deeper than words, she told him what he already knew. He was perfect too. Broken mechanic and rejected dragon. They'd found each other when both needed it most, and they'd spend the rest of their lives making sure no one else got left behind in a market, unwanted and alone. Not on their watch, the stars waited. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new hatchlings to save, new bonds to protect. But tonight, Rick and Silver stood together on their platform, family in every way that mattered. Nobody had wanted the defective hatchling, except the one person who saw past the surface and found something precious that had made all the difference.